Hey everybody, Bob Chick along with David Bay. We are back with another installment of The Last Rep. David, what's going on, buddy?
Not much, man. Same old, same old. Just trying to keep up with all the post-Olympia European tours. This guy winning, that guy winning, that guy winning, this guy winning.
This guy and that guy. Lots of the three Ds. These, those, and them all out there.
Oh, Jesus.
Hey, you know what's cool?
These, those,
There's been a
and
lot of discussion on the post-Olympia shows. And it's kind of an interesting dynamic to me because it's almost like a damned if we do and damned if we don't kind of a scenario from the IFBB perspective. It's all we do is hear about people bitching every year about the party line. You know, the same guy's going to be the same thing as the Olympia. Same guy's going to place in the same thing. Well, we've seen a complete upset of that entire process, and then they're bitching about that. So
yeah.
I'm at a loss here as to what's supposed to be going on.
No, you're never going to keep everybody happy. And I think basically what it comes down to is you have a handful of very neutral fans that just want to see the best competitor win on the day of the show. And I think you have the majority of the fans have their favorites. And whoever is, a big Ramy fan, they're going to want him to be winning those shows. And if he's not, it's going to be bullshit. And when he does,
Right.
they finally got it right. But it's almost like a lose-lose for the IFBB, like you said, because if it's the same guys placed in the same spot, the easy argument or that can be made is that this is consistent as far as the placings and everything go. And then of course there's conspiracies. Well, they want to get these guys qualified for the Olympia. It's like you guys forget. The top five are already qualified.
They're already qualified.
So
yeah.
as far as giving Ramy a qualification, giving Bonac a qualification, giving Dexter a qualification. Now, Dexter, mind you, is qualified for life because
Correct.
he won the Mr. Olympia in 2008. William and Ramy were already in top five. So any sort of discussion that brings up they're trying to qualify these
that's
guys
out.
for this year's Olympia is out because they're already qualified. I would have liked to have seen Phil Heath jump into maybe the Arnold Spain. I know at this point he's a six-time Olympia champion now, so he really doesn't have anything to prove. And so for him, it's kind of just going after the Olympia titles. But I think the fans would like to see him maybe jump in one show or the next. I don't know if that's an issue, if it's kind of one and done for Phil, or if there's always that
I don't think I would do that. It's a little out of the box. I mean, Ronnie actually is the one who kind of broke that open some years ago. Going out of the box, doing the Arnold that one year, of course, 01 or I think it was somewhere in that range, 2000 or 2001.
2001, that was
arguably his best. Yeah, I mean, which is cool. But let me tell you, Ronnie was the first one to say he would never do that again. He says the prep for both of those was
for two shows in a year.
Two shows was incredible. And actually, if you remember, 02 was not his best showing by any stretch. Actually, it was probably one of his worst showings for Ronnie. And part of that was, in fact, because he said he had a shortened year. And, people tend to forget the Arnold's in March. So, it kind of puts you on the short end. And he wasn't used to that at all. But I'm not so sure if I was Phil, I would ever put myself out there. Listen, you're a six-time Olympian now. You're chasing history, chasing your own destiny, all that good stuff. Certainly going to go down as one of the greatest Olympians of all time, no matter what happens from this point forward. I don't think I'd put myself in the line of fire to be possibly taken out. Maybe you hit it off. Phil hasn't been that consistent enough, let's face it.
I think that's what fans want to see, though. I think they want to see if a Phil Heath. I think they just want to see somebody beat Phil. They want
to. Of course,
And I've always gotten along great with Phil, and I've been very open that I think some of his wins have been questionable, but you could make an argument for them. I don't think I've ever seen him win where I threw my hands in the air and sort of stomped my feet. But there's a lot of people that just want to see him get knocked off, and they feel like if maybe there's a show after the Olympia and he's a little bit off. Kai a couple of years ago was, from what we had heard, was looking to take fourth in Prague before he pulled out. Some major things can happen.
Yeah, I was there. I mean, there was no question he was in fourth at best. Before he pulled out, and that's old news now. But it brings up another good point, or a separate point, but attached. I did talk to Phil a little while back about specifically about competing post Olympia, and in specifics about the Olympia Europe title. And I got to be honest. Well, first of all, he shot down competing after the Olympia right off the bat. He's like, nah, I'm not interested. Ain't going to happen. It's okay. And I says, what's your take on this Olympia Europe show? And he's like, I got to be honest. He says, I don't like it, and I find it disrespectful. He doesn't like the idea that there's another Olympia title out there. Now, forget about the Olympia Amateur. That's a whole different thing.
Right.
Nobody cares. It's fine. You know what I mean? It's very specific in what it is. Phil does not like the idea, and I can't say I blame him, that there's another Olympia. Now, I'm not even so sure what this title is. So if you win this show, are you the Olympia Europe champion? Are you Mr. Olympia Europe? Are you, certainly you got to take the Mr. title out. There can only be one Mr. Olympia. But I got to be honest, I'm kind of on Phil's side with that one, where I'm not so sure I would take too kindly to another Olympia title being out there. This is not the Arnold.
Yeah, I think the folks that are promoting the Olympia, obviously the Olympia, anybody who's been there, it's an incredible production. I mean, that whole weekend, the stage, the arena, the meet and greet, everything from A to Z is just ran so well, and it's such a good production that maybe they're thinking, hey, the Arnold Classics, that production has gone multi-continental. It's essentially worldwide now, and has done very successful. And so, while I can't speak, obviously on behalf of AMI or any of the people that are at Olympia LLC, I think maybe looking at that business model and saying, hey, why not bring a show like we have here in Las Vegas over to the European fans? And so I think the show itself is a really good idea. You've been over to the European fans and the fans here in America. If you haven't been over to a show in Europe, which a lot of people probably haven't, it's different over there.
Oh, yeah.
Like the fans here, they love bodybuilding, and the people wait in line hours to get their pictures with the pros. The fans over in Europe are crazy. I mean, absolutely crazy. When I was at the Arnold Spain last year, I'm trying to walk through the expo with Sean, and I might as well have been a bodyguard for Justin Bieber walking through his concerts. I mean, there was people grabbing him and going nuts.
Oh, wow.
And so my point is like the European fans are just so crazy about bodybuilding, and there really is a small handful of shows over there. You have the Arnold Europe, you have Prague. This year we had the Levrone show, but there's a pretty small handful of pro shows over there. And so for the people at Olympia LLC to say, okay, we're going to not only have a show over there, but we're going to make it a big production. I think from a business standpoint and for the fans, it's a good thing. For the athletes, it's another opportunity for them to do the business of bodybuilding and make money. Talk so much about that. As long as there's a paycheck being given out, it's a good opportunity for the bodybuilders. But I will agree with you in that the Olympia title, I don't even want to say it's a bad thing. I think it's just a little bit confusing. And I think as the show comes a little bit closer, they'll probably come up with more details in regards to all the questions that we have.
And let me clarify. I agree with you on all those points, David. I think it's from a business perspective. I think it's a great idea. So I don't want people to get the wrong impression of what I'm saying here. From the AMI perspective, from the Olympia perspective, from branding the Olympia out even more, or the bodybuilding brand and the IFBB, I think it's fantastic. It's strictly the title I'm talking about. And like I say, you got to be very careful to me with a very rich history and tradition of the Mr. Olympia title. And we've had this discussion before, even in terms of the 212. And we did drop the Showdown title from the 212 this year. So it's no longer the Olympia, the 212 Showdown at basically on the Olympia weekend. It's the 212 Olympia. Now, again, we can call Flex Lewis anything we want. He's 212 Olympia champ, 212 Mr. Olympia even. It's not the official title. There's only one Mr. Olympia. That, of course, right now is Phil Heath. So, like I say, we'll see how that pans out. And like I say, maybe with time, if there's 3 or 4 of them, I think it actually makes it a little bit easier. That maybe these just become Olympia Europe, Olympia Asia, Olympia whatever they want to call it. But there is no Mr. title. There is no Sandow. There is no Mr. title. Has to be reserved and preserved for that Vegas show, for what we know as the Mr. Olympia title and all that stuff. Speaking of which, David, I will segue.
That's your segue. All right.
That's the international sign for segue. I will segue into post-Olympia talk. Our good friend Kevin Levrone, wisely, I think, let's see. Initially, he wasn't going to compete after the Olympia. Then he was. Then we had the Olympia. Then he wasn't. And then I think at the end of the day, he made the smart play in not actually stepping on stage as a competitor. He went out to Prague. He's done some other appearances and that type of thing. However, he did basically reiterate the idea that he wants to continue to compete in 2017. And now talking about, with 8 more months of training and this and that, I got to be honest, bro. I don't think that's a good play. I think it could do more damage than good. I think Kevin got out great on the Olympia stage, as best as he was going to get out. Listen, we've talked about that ad nauseum, placings, whatever, this and that. It became immaterial at the end of the day. It was great to see Kevin on the Olympia stage. He went out with a standing ovation with 10,000 plus in a packed house on the Olympia stage. To me, a very fitting, welcome back and also farewell type of thing. Here's the problem I got. If you come back now and you compete again, A, he's going to have to requalify. You're not just going to get a lifetime pass. He's not an Olympia champion. B, you're just competitor number, 17 now. You know what I mean? Like there is no more real consideration or any that kind of thing. Or, hey, it's Kevin, At some point, bro, if you want to get yourself back in the mix, man, you're another competitor on that. So people are trying to beat you. There is no nostalgia or anything like that. You're taking a paycheck out of somebody else's pocket. I don't know if that physique, even with another 8 months of training, can get back. Could he, question to you, could Kevin requalify at a circuit show this year, 2017?
It's a big depends. His front and his side shots we all saw were good at the Olympia. And I'll go as far as to say they were competitive. His legs and his back were not, and especially his legs. And, Kevin's talked about having some issues with his knees and his quads, and he's going through some treatment to help with that. That being said, there's still a really long way to go for his legs to get back to where they were and be competitive against some of the other guys today. So the thing is, when Kevin came out at the Olympia, it was this comeback. It was this one-time thing, and
right.
We've said this before. The second he walked out on Friday and didn't look the way we had hoped he would, it was like a little bit of a letdown for about a half a second, and then you know what? You set that aside and just enjoyed the fact that you were getting to witness Kevin Levrone compete. That nostalgia and that kind of, this is so cool, we get to see Kevin, that kind of starts fading in a big hurry when he comes back next year again if he doesn't make some serious improvements. Now, in Kevin's defense, anybody who's just a hardcore competitor, he's been playing sports since he was a kid, so it's not just like a bodybuilding career. In his head, I got to think if he questions even a little bit as to whether he could have been better at the Olympia, he's going to have a hard time not coming back again. It's like that. It's that could I have done better? It's could I have done better? And he obviously looks fantastic for 52, and I think
without
he had
question. Yeah.
He talked about this. He talked about this comeback for years. I mean, he talked about this comeback for years. This big what if, the old Rocky. I got something left in the basement. You know what? And he went out and did it, but he wasn't satisfied with what he did. So I don't think he really got the answers he was looking for. And if he wants to come back and compete again next year, I say, go nuts. Do what you want to do. At the end of the day, he's got to do what's going to make him happy, and he's got to live with his decisions one way or another. And getting up on stage and not looking the way he wants and saying I gave it another year, at the end of the day, to me, is going to be better than him hanging it up for the next 10 years. So what if I would have, tried this and this and this? But, in any regard, I'm with you. He's not going to get any free passes. And the thing is these young guys, for as much respect as Kevin gets from these young guys, and we saw that at the Olympia this year, every one of them, they're going to be gunning for him. And they look at him as another competitor. I mean, Kevin's, he's jumping back in with the Sharks, and there's some deep waters now in the IFBB with some of these young up-and-comers, and he's not going to have, to answer your question in this ridiculously long runaround answer I gave you, I think he would have a very difficult time qualifying for the Olympia unless he makes some major improvements in his arms and legs. If I look at the shows that I've covered so far this year, okay, Poland, you had Cedric winning. Then you had Dexter win a couple shows. Kai won a couple shows. Dallas McCarver won in Chicago. Justin Compton won, in China, and he won in Sacramento. I forget who even won Tampa. That's
Josh Lenarowitz won.
Josh Lenarowitz. I mean, so basically,
Bonac
won these shows, and I ask myself, could Kevin beat any of these guys? And right now, the answer is no. I mean, you got to look at the guys that are winning. Guys that are winning shows are also guys that are in the top 10 or 12 at the Olympia. So
let me ask you this though: does it beyond the qualifying for the Olympia scenario, which, like you say, is an uphill battle at best and very unlikely, and that's with all due respect. Does it tarnish the legacy though? I mean, does going back out there now, like you say, does it take a little bit of that edge off, where it's like, let's just hypothetically say he goes in a couple of shows and he doesn't fare that well. Let's just say he takes a 10th, he takes an 8th. That type of is that worse for the brand going forward than just hanging it up now and leaving with that feeling that you were on the Olympia stage, that you got a standing ovation? It was great to see Kevin again and all that. Does all that get washed away the minute he steps on a Europa stage or a Tampa or a Chicago?
For a few years, yeah, I think so. I think people, I just when you started talking about it, the first thing that came to my mind, being a Wisconsin guy, is Brett Favre.
Great analogy.
That's great. And even after he left the Vikings, or after he left the Packers, crappy year with the Jets, but then a phenomenal year with the Vikings. But he hung around a little bit too long with the Vikings, and it almost got sad. And then there was okay, we've seen everything we need to see. And then after a couple of years went by, it's like, everybody in Green Bay loves Brett again. And I think that's going to be the thing with Kevin. I think, if he comes out on stage next year and doesn't do so good, I think people are going to be like, well, he's just not what he used to be. And then a couple of years later, it'll be back to remembering him for
history. Clearly not on his side, as we can come up with a dozen of these things right now. It's Jordan with the Wizards. It's there's been a lot of these guys, bro. Favre is probably one of the better analogies to a degree. I'll even go Montana with the Chiefs, although he wasn't that bad. But it's still it's OJ with San Francisco.
Jerry Rice.
It's Jerry Rice. You can go down this list, bro. But you can't give me one example of this type of scenario that actually went the other way. There's no good ending to this.
Now you got me thinking all these.
Go ahead. Here, I'll give you to the next show to think about that, because we got to move on to some other stuff. Speaking of the Europa, which I just mentioned, tomorrow I'm off bright and early. Europa Phoenix going on. Adam Betty Pariso, of course, along with Scott Templeton, Eric Hillman, and the crew at Europa, of course, putting on another great show. This is a good show. It's a huge expo in Phoenix. Yeah. Headlining it, of course, the 212 boys will be taking the stage, and this one's turning out to be a pretty good lineup, David.
Yeah, a couple late entries. You have Guy Cisternino and Charles Dixon jumped in. Hidetaro was already on the list. The guy I'm going to be looking out for the most, and we'll have pictures and we'll be doing some updates and stuff. We don't have a crew on hand there, but we'll have the photos and stuff. But the guy I'm looking out for the most is John Jewett. Now, John I think he got 6th in the middleweights last year at the USA's. Came back, won the heavyweights this year. 40 pounds of stage muscle in the off season, and I think he just made heavyweights. So he's one of these guys who's going to definitely have to peel back to get down to 212. But I think he's going to be competitive right out of the gate. I think that Charles Dixon, Guy Cisternino, and Hidetaro are easy first call out guys. But I think I wouldn't be one bit surprised if John Jewett was in that first call out and compared very well to these guys.
If you're Guy Cisternino, you had to be jumping on this show the second the Olympia ended. Guy is a perennial, first call out person, competitor. I was going to say guy, but that was a little redundant. But, listen, Guy's always in the mix, man. He's always up there. He's won a whole bunch of shows this past year, established himself. I'm sure he's disappointed at the Olympia. And it's not so much that he came in off, rather than man, that show was so deep, so tough and difficult. When I was announcing the guys that were the non-top 5 finishers.
Yeah,
Holy
right?
crap, bro. I mean, there were some names in there that it was like, whoa.
Yeah,
You know?
he was visibly disappointed on stage, and guys not he's not and he's never been and he probably never will be a guy to really hide his emotions. He says, he
No.
says how he feels, and he feels, when you talk to him, he feels like if he's on, he can beat those other guys. And so when he's up there and he's not getting compared, yeah, he's pissed off. So I'm assuming he's going to come back in, to this Europa.
Well, see, this is smart play right here. This is great strategery. All right,
strategy.
and for a good reason. See, now this is a competition that a lot of guys didn't have on their radar. Well, it's past the Olympia. They started eating donuts and stuff the day after. Got a little crazy, and then it's like, screw it. I'll wait till next year. The next season, past the first of the year, as we talk about in bodybuilding, seasons, so to say. Guy had his eye on the prize. I think this is a smart play. I think Charles Dixon's another one. That's a great move for him. Like I say, or a great opportunity for somebody new, like you just mentioned, like John Jewett, to get in there and maybe establish himself, even if it's not a win. Perhaps he can stand toe to toe with those guys and put himself up on the map. So great opportunity. So we've got some pro shows. We've obviously got the NPC amateurs, and of course we've got an entire expo filled up with every booth known to man that will be there. Unfortunately, one of those quick shout outs, as most people know by now, Arthur L. Rhea from ALRI Industries passed away this past week. I actually knew Art Scott, as his real name was, for many years. He was an interesting character. He was very unique. He was almost like a mad scientist, I want to say. Very smart. Knew his stuff very much, but definitely more at home with the white lab coat on than the tank top that we became accustomed to seeing him at the shows. But he passed away this last weekend, so we wanted to give out, of course, our condolences to his friends and family. Speaking of bodybuilding, we talk about some of those great names. We talk about some of the guys establishing themselves, David, throughout the year and all that. A topic came up on the boards this week. I don't have it in front of me, but whoever put that one out, I thought it was a great topic and something I wanted to get your take on. But there's the Sergio versus Sergio Jr. Topic, and I thought it was a good one to kind of for us to discuss. Can he be anywhere near like what his father was? Can he follow in his footsteps? That type of thing. First of all, listen, you're talking about a different time and a place and all that. I mean, it's, once again, that unfair, analogy, it's Babe Ruth versus, somebody today. It's like, look, you can't even compare these two. You talk about an unfair comparison. I mean, that's a little rough, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. It's a terrible comparison. And the reason it is because what you just said, there's 40 years separating when these guys got on stage. And the thing is, to me, is we've talked about this time and time again with competitions at every level. Until you see two guys standing next to each other, it's hard to make comparisons. Obviously, you can look at a picture of Ronnie Coleman in his prime and some Joe Blow from wherever, and you don't need to see them standing next to each other to make some sort of judgment call as to who would win. But when you're talking professional caliber, and Sergio Jr. is no small guy.
No,
he's not a guy. And I'm probably going to catch some heat from the real old school guys and the hardcore, golden era guys. But Sergio Sr. wasn't competing against anywhere near as deep of a field when we're talking big guys as his son is now. I mean, if you look, like if you guys, you watch Pumping Iron, yeah, you had some fantastic physiques. You had Arnold, you had Lou, you had Serge Nabray. But as far
that's
as
about
this,
it.
But as far as this pool, I mean, if you look at some of the other guys that were in that show, like some of these guys winning, like Ken Waller's physique in Pumping Iron wouldn't win a local NPC show today from a muscularity or a conditioning standpoint. I mean, so when you look at the size and the depth, and of course the discussion that's going to come up right away is the supplements, the drugs, and the differences in training.
But that's irrelevant. See, this is why you can't compare eras.
Right.
It's unfair. Listen, if I took a time machine and I took Sergio the father and I took Sergio Jr. and I took them both at their absolute all-time best and put them on stage next to each other, Sergio Jr. absolutely destroys Sergio Sr. Okay? And by today's modern standards of conditioning, of what they're looking for, listen, they weren't looking for lines in your ass back in the 60s.
Right.
They weren't looking, again, by today's standards, again, we're not talking about, Bob's out of his mind. We're talking about Sergio, 3-time Olympian. Listen, we get all that, guys, okay? We get it. This is why you can't even compare eras. You can't do it. It's not even debatable.
I just get a little bent with some of the guys, and I don't know Sergio that well, so it's not like I have him and I aren't having hot dogs and Kool-Aid on Sundays and watching baseball, but it's like he's a very good bodybuilder, and he's a big dude, and when he's on, he looks really good. And so to compare him and for people to say, well, he'll never be even anywhere near as good as his dad was, it's like, okay, well, his dad was competing in a different era. And if we're going to be really, really critical here, structurally, was his dad put together better than he is? Probably yes. Size-wise, until you see him standing next to each other, hard to say. Conditioning-wise, Sergio Jr. kills him, but back in the 70s and 60s and stuff, that wasn't the benchmark for what made a good athlete. So it's hard to compare. And I think that the guys on the forums in this particular thread that are going after Sergio Jr., he's never going to be as good as his dad. I think those guys are the same guys who are just so hung up on the golden era and stuff like that. And
listen, I'm as nostalgic as anybody, bro. I'm as old school as they come. I know the history. I've got books and stuff and magazines, as I told you, dating back to the 17 and 1800s. I've got some pretty cool stuff out there, that's to the history of body. You can't compare them in terms of legacy. Okay? I mean, listen, is Sergio Jr. going to win the Olympia 3 times? No. He's not going to win it 2 times. He's probably not going to win it 1 time. Maybe down the road you're going to want to rule it out because, listen, the kid's good. They got to get him on a pro stage just to even see what he's capable of and how he stacks up against today's pros. But you're talking physique versus legacy. Listen, Sergio Sr., is obviously an icon in the sport. No, you're never. That's like saying, can Arnold's kid ever, clearly not. Nobody can. You're not going to be better than him. You're not going to be, none of that kind of stuff. At best, you forge your own path and all that stuff. I want to talk more about in terms of physiques now. Does Sergio Jr. have what it takes to win a pro show, to get on that Olympia stage, which I think would be really cool, to have the father-son deal in Olympia history, which I'm not so sure has ever taken place, actually. I got to think about that one. This is where we need Peter McGuff, who, by the way,
it's not that. I mean, not to say that it's not that hard, but if we go back through the Olympias, I don't know, Larry Scott's kid was never on stage, Arnold's, Sergio's, Frank Zane's, Chris Dickerson's, Samir. I mean, it's a pretty short list of Mr. Olympias, so it's easy to go through. And I'm gonna say no, we haven't seen that.
Pretty sure we've never had one. Yeah, I mean, so that would be pretty cool.
I think he's gonna have to get a little bit bigger. I mean, he's a big kid. He's got really good quads. He's got he's got a lot of good body parts. He needs to get a little bit bigger though. I think he's gonna do the New York Pro this year. From what I've heard, that's gonna be where he's jumping in. So he's jumping into a deep show. So we're going to know in a hurry how he stacks up against those guys. But I think he'll do pretty well. He was a national champion, won the overall at nationals. He's got to be on. I've seen him off a couple times, and he has no room to be off whatsoever. At least not with the size that he's carrying around right now. So he's going to have to be on the money. But if he is, he can, he's one of these guys where I don't know if he can win a pro show in 2017, but I could see him taking 3rd or 4th at a handful of these shows and racking up enough points to get to the Olympia. So
if he picks it right, David, I think he could win a show in 2017. And again, there's shows out there that seem to just sneak up on people. And I think about shows, like a Vancouver Pro, or like a.
He probably could have won it this year.
Yeah, actually. Like the Ferrigno coming up. Obviously, I don't believe he's preparing for that right now, but that's another show. That again, there's certain shows that for whatever reason don't seem to get the best of the best coming there, which is great because it gives people opportunities to win a show fair and square, or even if he were to travel overseas. Again, there's a great opportunity there. But I think he's got the fundamentals. The only thing he doesn't have that the old man had is the waistline. His father's waist was ridiculously small.
Yeah, and the guys who are going to make the structural argument, look, I would like to make that very clear so I don't get lit up 3 ways from Sunday on the boards. I do not think Sergio Jr. is as structurally gifted as
I
his father.
agreed. Yeah.
That being said, can you? I don't know if I could count on how many guys are ahead. I mean,
Give me somebody else.
it's such a small number. I'd have to sit here and think who if I had to go through like all the bodybuilders I can remember and say who do I think is more structurally or genetically gifted than Sergio, you're going to have a hard time coming up with a list. You know,
Well, that's what made him great, and that's what made him an icon in the sport and part of history, and a three-time Mr. Olympia. Interestingly, when you watch Sergio on stage, and I've seen plenty of footage and pictures of the great Sergio, of course, over the years, there are certain poses, bro, where he so much looks like Sergio Sr. that it's frightening to me. I mean, even the facial look, the most muscular with the big grin, that's his father, man. The victory pose, even. Now, again, minus the tiny 28-inch waist that his father had. Yeah, he doesn't have that, but you know what? In that pose, it's so reminiscent of his father. I mean, like I said, there are 2 or 3 poses that he hits that it's like, wow, man. I mean, that's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, no, it is. It's anytime you see, and it's something that we don't see in bodybuilding. You see it in other sports a little bit, the father sons. You see it, in the NFL, and you see it in basketball. We've seen it in baseball. I think there was, God, I think when I was younger, I think Ken Griffey Jr. and Sr. Weren't they playing at the same time?
Yeah, I think they did. Yeah, actually,
one of Griffey's last years. But I mean, but it's not something that you see in other sports, and we see it a little bit in bodybuilding. Hunter Labrada's done very well for himself competing. Durham Charles' son has done a couple of shows. I don't know if he's done anything recently. So, David Hawk's son, I think, was competing for a little bit.
There's been a whole bunch, yeah.
Yeah, there's a handful of bodybuilders that have had their sons compete and do well at a local or a national level, but I don't know that we've seen anybody reach the pro ranks other than Sergio. So it's a cool story, not only because you have a father and then a son that were pro bodybuilders. Obviously, his dad having been Mr. Olympia and an icon makes it a much cooler story. But I think the guys need to ease up a little on Sergio Jr. and just give him some time, let him grow, and it's not a fair comparison to his dad, and you're never gonna have a good argument.
Well, give him a break. Jeez, I mean, could you pick the guy's his father's is one of the most recognized names in bodybuilding. Beat Arnold, one of the few, obviously, to ever do that, and won the Olympia 3 times. But other than that,
yeah. Well, the other thing about Sergio is that he's not trying to ride off his dad's coattails at all.
No,
I mean,
no.
So when we talk about people in this industry trying to break through and become popular and do all this stuff, and this is an industry where it's so cutthroat, you'd think that people would be taking every single advantage that they could to try to get their name out there and to do whatever. And Sergio's not doing that. He wants to make a name for himself. He wants to be known for the stuff that he's done and not what his dad's doing, and he's putting in a lot of work to get there. And he moved out to California, so he's training out at the Mecca. He's, Brad Rowe jumped in on the thread and said, "Hey, Sergio's out there busting his butt." And Brad kind of reiterated, the same sentiments I just shared, that, Sergio's trying to do this, on his own, trying to do it his way. And I think you'll see a very competitive Sergio come May in New York.
I'll tell you the thing I like best about Sergio, and I've got a few chances to spend some time with him and talk with him, even as far back as before he was really on a competitive scene. I remember talking to him when he was taking his father around at the Olympia and stuff, and he doesn't make any bones about it. He doesn't paint a rosy picture. I mean, he had a very tumultuous relationship with his father. His father was very difficult, very hard to get along with. He was very old school, very thick-headed, and bullheaded when it came to certain things. He did not support Sergio Jr. In his bodybuilding efforts. If anything, he tried talking him out of it. Honestly, he just wasn't really there for him in that respect. Sergio Jr., to his credit, always respected his father. He took care of his father right till the end. But he wanted to forge his own way. But if you ever get a chance to talk to him, he's got the best personality. You talk about personalities in the sport of bodybuilding, and he's one of the best ones. He's such a good kid. He's got such a great disposition about where he is in bodybuilding and all that. I don't think I've ever seen him in a bad mood. He's always got that big smile on his face. He's happy to be where he is, doing what he's doing. I can't wait to see him on a pro stage because it's going to be exciting to see the next generation up there. Same thing with, you mentioned Hunter Labrada, Lee Labrada's kid. Another good kid, man. I tell you, the apple don't fall far from the tree. I watched him compete in 2 Texas shows this year.
Yeah, he did.
Both of which he won one and the overall. The other one he won his class, lost the overall as he was trying to move up in weight. Just he's in between kind of a heavy and a super heavyweight.
Right.
So they were experimenting a little bit, which I think this is a great time to be doing that. But man, same thing. Poses reminiscent of his father. You could definitely see similarities in their style. Obviously, he's been taught by the best. Lee Labrada certainly right up there. So I was expecting a damn good routine. But man, his physique is good. I mean, that kid is good. It'd be pretty cool to see Hunter Labrada and Sergio Jr. On stage at the same time. So it'd be kind of good to have the next generation up there battling it out.
Yeah.
All right, finally, David. Not all that glitters is gold in this industry, of course. We saw this last week, this explosion on social media and on the boards, of course, with this entire Blackstone Prime, Aaron and PJ, I mean, bro, what do you make of this? What a mess.
You know what? Here's my take on this whole situation, and I've known Aaron and PJ for a while, and I might get lit up for this a little bit. I'm going to try to stay kind of neutral in this whole situation. Look, as far as John Meadows is an amazing guy. So when John Meadows puts something out, I'm going to take his word for it. Period. I don't need to ask twice. Whatever. But all the stuff with Aaron and PJ, like I said, I don't know all the ins and outs of this. I'm not going to start trying to throw one person under the bus or the other person under the bus. I don't want to get in the middle of all that because I don't know all the ins and outs. And I'm sure you've seen it 1,000 times, and I've seen it 1,000 times where somebody gets a half story, another person gets a half story, somebody gets a third story, and nobody knows what's really going on. So as far as all that's concerned, as far as what happened and all that, I don't want to get into that too much. I just did want to say that from a supplement company standpoint, I think if they were underdosing, I think that sucks. And the thing is that we know. Look, this bodybuilding is a business, and everybody's out to sell supplements. We're a magazine and a website. We're selling advertising to sell supplements. Sure. The target market, you have kids between the ages of 16 and 24, and then you have another market between the age of 24 and 35 going out and buying these supplements, spending their money. And these aren't people with a ton of money. We've all been there. It's like, okay, I'm an 18-year-old kid who's going to work a part-time job, and I'm going to stay home on weekend nights to try to, do the right thing. And I'm going to spend the hard-earned money I make on these supplements that are going to help. And, I mean, there's a whole nother argument. Should these young kids just be eating food? But, the supplements do help. And it's like, if you're going to spend your money on that stuff, you should at least be getting what you're paying for. Now, every supplement company makes all these supplements, and the claims as far as what they're going to do. To me, there's two different things. You can say it's going to add 300% more muscle, and if you buy that, then okay, whatever. That's on you. And if you think getting it. I mean, I used to work at a GNC when I was younger. We had people come in and thought if they bought a 5-pound tub of protein, they were going to add 5 pounds of muscle. I mean, it was there's all that. Right. So you can talk about supplements and the effectiveness of the supplements until you're blue in the face, and that stuff is so debatable it's not even funny. But what's not debatable at all is that regardless of what you're selling, what you're putting on the label is what should be in the product, regardless of how that product works, whether it's going to work for Joe Blow and not work for the next guy. Whatever you're putting on that label, whatever they think they're paying for, that's what they should be getting. And this isn't a supplement industry thing. This isn't even a bodybuilding thing. This is just every industry. People are spending hard-earned money on products, and they should be getting what they should be getting what they're paying for, or what they're being told they're purchasing. Now, the one side I do know a little bit about that I will go into is that High Tech Pharmaceuticals bought Prime. Now, we've known the guys for High Tech for a while. They sponsor a lot of our stuff. I had a chance to go down to their headquarters in Atlanta in February. They make all their own stuff. That's the one thing, and we have some videos on High Tech that we put out there. They have their own manufacturing plant. So all the products that High Tech makes, they manufactures in-house. They have very stringent testing protocols for all their products. And they're good guys. I mean, it's like you went down there and, my first trip down there, I wasn't sure if it was going to be all suits and, everybody's all uppity. It's just a big gathering of guys. And I think High Tech will do a good job with Prime. They've acquired a couple other companies that have, either, gotten in bad situations, or just had the owners selling them. So they've acquired other companies, done a great job with them. I think they'll do a great job with Prime. I'm sure they'll be manufacturing. There was discussions about Prime being manufactured by other people. I can't say for certain, but I can't imagine High Tech would be having anybody else produce the Prime products having in-house. So as far as moving forward with Prime Nutrition, with High Tech as the owners, you're going to get good products. And here's the other thing I'll say, because High Tech's owner Jared is catching a little bit of heat on the forums from, because if you Google the guy, he's had some legal stuff come up.
Sure.
But the thing about Jared, and we're not going to get too much into far in the past because there's some stuff, but whatever. The point is that most of the legal stuff you see between the FDA and the government and Jared right now, as far as lawsuits and stuff, that $40 million lawsuit that they beat, by the way, they want to produce their products, and the government wants to come out and say, you can't claim this, or you can't claim that, or you can't do this, or you can't do that, or you have to put this regulation, or you have to put that regulation. And that bankrupts a lot of supplement companies. If you're making a product and the government all of a sudden comes out and says, well, you can't sell that anymore, right, that's the end of the day for some supplement companies. Jared's in a position where he says, no, I'm not going to let the FDA or the government or whoever bully my company around. So if you want to take this to court, let's do it. And so there's going to be headlines about Jared. There's going to be stuff about High Tech, but he's doing a great service for the supplement industry as a whole, because a lot of these companies don't have the money to fight the government. And a lot of it, look, and I don't want to get too into some big government thing, but I said this before. I'm like, we live in a country where I could go to a gas station, I could buy 6 bottles of vodka and 4 cartons of smokes and go home and essentially kill myself. But the government says, "Whoa, we can't have too much creatine on the shelves or ephedra or something."
Right.
It's just bullshit. It's total bullshit. And the government is, they get away with bullying some of these supplement companies. So I think it's pretty awesome when you get a guy like Jared who comes in and can say, you know what, we're going to produce our products, we're going to sell them to our customers, and if you're going to shut us down, you're going to have to come out with guns blazing, because they're not just going to put their tail between their legs.
Well, there's 2 parts of the story. One is exactly what you just highlighted and talked about. Jared Wheat, obviously High Tech and all that. I think it's a good direction, obviously, for the company. I think they'll probably do very well with it. The other half has to do with basically the 2 individuals, or 3 if you want to include John Meadows, Aaron Singerman and PJ Braun. I give this message to you guys in particular. Shut the hell up. Just shut up. I mean, seriously, do either of these guys think that this is helping either one of their causes? They're both going to lose in the end if you just keep attacking each other and, well, Aaron did this, and well, PJ did that, and well, John said this, and well, when he was here with us, and when I was there, everything was good, and then when I left, listen, like I said, you guys are not helping each other out, okay, either one of you. Both your companies are going to suffer. Both of them it's going to be a negative connotation. So it doesn't matter. You listen, you can fight for who's right, or you could just move on.
Yeah.
Move on.
I think what happens is that this is such a small industry, and through social media, everybody knows everybody.
Sure.
And so when you know everybody in the industry, you want to uphold your reputation. And the thing is that social media makes it so easy. I mean, PJ went live, and all of a sudden you got, I don't know how many people watching it. Social media makes you so accessible to all the people that are following you, all your customers, all everything. And I think these guys were out there trying to defend their own reputation, get their side of the story out, when from a business standpoint, that, sometimes you got to, look, you got to set personal stuff aside sometimes in business and just say, we're going to handle this in the best manner that we can. PJ obviously was passionate when he went out and said what he did, and and there's been responses and back and forth. But like I said, at the end of the day, I don't know enough about the whole situation to make too many judgments.
Honestly, it's irrelevant. It really is. It's irrelevant. Who's right? Who's wrong? Who did what? Who set up who? Who did possibly did this or that? Listen. There's too many choices out there today, guys. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies, like, I don't know, Iron Mag Labs, perhaps. Good companies that are out there with.
I just got my
breakfast club. Very appropriate, by the way.
I for you guys watching, I came on the show. I had a white V-neck on, and Bob like went. I grabbed an '80s shirt, and my
overruled.
My Breakfast Club shirt was the closest thing I had handy.
You listen. You'd have gotten crap if you didn't have that on, so you should be thanking me for that. But
It's got a little letter on the back, the letter that they wrote to Vernon.
gratuitous backlat spread being shown, by the way.
No. The only thing annoying is that when I have the shirt on and people come up and they actually want to try reading the back of it because they want to read the whole thing, they're like, "What? What the?"
Let's not get crazy now. But well, listen, that's my message, David. Like I say, this ain't helping nobody out there for these guys. Like I say, do yourselves a favor, boys. Shut it. Just move on. Work with your own companies, but get off this battle with each other. Because honestly, or stay on it. Because honestly, it's better for some of the other companies, like I don't know, Iron Man Labs, perhaps. Listen, there's lots of choices out there. At the end of the day, you're going to go with a company that's reputable. You're going to go with a company that's got true labeling, that of what's in there. And that's the bottom line. People, like you say, they work hard for their money and they put it out there and they want to make sure that the least they can get. Listen, there's 10 other shows of discussion as to what supplements don't do. It's snake oil, it's bullshit, it's this, we've heard it all. The least you can do is have what's exactly supposed to be in there that's on the label. At the end of the day, that's the best you can do for your consumer. And obviously, we're all in the same business. So that's going to wrap things up, David, for another exciting week in the bodybuilding world. We've got lots of stuff coming up, of course. There used to be a considerable off season, but those days are gone.
Yeah,
we've got other pro shows coming up. We've got Phoenix this weekend. We've got the Nationals just around the corner.
Ferrigno Legacy.
Got the Ferrigno Legacy. Europe. So lots of stuff coming up. We'll be on the boards to field all your questions, of course. And for any of you idiots that want to come out there, feel free. I'm more than willing to take you on once again. Anybody wants to battle, you know where I am. Always fun, David. All in good fun.
You know where to find Bob.
You know where to find me. All right, bro. Appreciate you coming out, David. We'll catch up with you next week for another installment of The Last Rep. That's going to break it down for this week. I'm Bob Chick. That's David Bay. We're out.